We should be ready to go.
Well, we're going to get started. Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of San Clemente on Wednesday, October 18th, 2023, here at the City Council Chambers. I'll call this meeting to order and ask Commissioner Prescott Loeffler to lead us in the pledge tonight.
Please join us as we honor a flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are going to convene tonight without Commissioner Davis and Vice Chair Camp. All other commissioners are present. We do have a special order of business tonight, a special presentation from Christopher Wright, Associate Planner 2, on the Track-It system. Christopher, are you ready to go?
While he's doing that, you can congratulate.
Yeah, let me take a few minutes while you're getting set up to congratulate Jonathan Lightfoot on his appointment as our new city planner. Congratulations, Jonathan, well deserved. We're very excited for you and looking forward to your continued expertise and contribution to the city.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you.
Yes. I'll also add my congratulations to Adam Atamian, who was the Deputy Director of Community Development Department. He's now the Director of the Community Development Department. So we have been working with Adam and, for the past several years, and we have sent our congratulations to him. And Cecilia, who was formerly the Director of the Community Development Department, is now the Assistant City Manager. So we want to send our congratulations to all three of you. Good news all the way around.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass that along.
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Hello. Chair, Commissioners, Christopher Wright, Associate Planner. This is a special presentation on our efforts to upgrade our permitting system. The city had invested in upgrading the Track-It permitting software, and part of that is electronic submittal of applications. Seems like there's feedback. So the building department has been taking in a number of applications for some time as part of this update, and planning has been working on our part of that. So we now have administrative staff level type permits that we're able to accept online. And that's what I'm going to be showing you this evening on the user side. And then staff is working on the public hearing type of projects that go before the Planning Commission. We expect that to go live early next month in conjunction with the new procedure changes that you had worked with me on recently. So I'm going to give you a brief walkthrough of what a member of the public would see by submitting an application. So if you go to our website and you go down to planning, which, what am I not seeing? Okay, applications. And in here, we'll talk about administrative applications, and there's a link here that you click. And to file an application, you need an account. So you set up an account here, and once you do this one time, then you wouldn't have to do it again. You create an account, and you're going to type in your information. And then you're gonna create a login name. And you create a password. Just. I'm gonna make that up. And just in case, I'll say yes. Oh, wait. Password 6. Okay. Okay. So then continue. And now at this point, you can create an application. So you can come down here to projects, apply. And you have this disclaimer where they go through here and they read this text and they say, I agree, and continue. And then there's different types of projects. So at the beginning, we worked on drafting this language here so a member of the public would get a sense of what some next steps are, encouraging them to contact a staff person to make sure that they understand what sort of materials they should be submitting, and that sort of guidance that we have found at a staff level really helps people go through the process faster. The better information they have usually will lead to a better outcome. So all of these things are subject to being refined over time, but this is what we have come up with so far. I don't know if you want to read through this, but I was more going to give you just kind of like a walkthrough, and then we can go back if you want. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay. So we have several different types of applications. We've tried to simplify this, and I'm just going to apply for one of them here. We have administrative sign permit. We have an ADU pre-screen, meaning like we make sure that they have an address exhibit and they've gone to the Coastal Commission and some other items. Grading application, doing it in concept review before something goes to the Coastal Commission. A lot line adjustment, mural permit, parklet dining permit, portable sign permit, which are like the A-frame type signs businesses can have, a small sale type permit, special activities permit, a staff waiver, temporary banner permit, temporary use permit, and a wireless modification. Some of these permits will be adjusted when the streamlining ordinance goes into effect, but that's just what's in effect right now. So I'm gonna do an administrative sign permit for my demo.
Hey, Christopher,
Yes,
if someone wants to apply for a permit that's not one of those types, can they do that, or they just do it, the traditional way, over the counter?
they can do it the traditional way, but this includes the majority of the applications that staff processes. The exception are gonna be the public hearing approvals, which I said early next month is when we're expecting that to go live. So when that goes live, it's gonna be like 95% of our applications will be
Okay,
on
so
that.
but like 2-unit projects and SB9 lot splits and stuff, will they be on there, or do enough of them to warrant them being on there?
We can put them on here. Right now, our focus is on public hearing applications.
Got it.
So if someone wants to submit one of those applications, they can just email it to us or make an appointment to visit us at the counter.
Got it, okay, thank you.
I've got a question on that. These are all planning applications,
With the
Oh.
exception of the grading
but
application.
what happens once it's gotten through this and it goes to building department or engineering. Does this end at the end of planning? Is this planning only?
This is planning only. So projects are planning and engineering. Permits, the way that the system is, permits are building department.
So you have that one site where you can go in by street address and find out if you see somebody working on their property or whatever, and find out if something's been issued on the property.
Yes,
Will this populate
yes.
that?
So if you search by the property, it would show you if there was a planning project or a building permit.
It will
Or
do
a
that,
code
okay.
case or whatever activity is on that property. Yeah. But this is the module for projects. So planning type applications and engineering grading type applications. Yeah. But just while we're here and looking at this menu, like I said, we're working on the public hearing type of applications. We've designed that to be really simple for the public. So instead of having all the different types of approvals that you see when we have these meetings, most members of the public aren't going to be diving into our zoning ordinance and knowing when to apply for, say, one type of public hearing application over another. And we've tried to model this system as much as we can after the public counter. So what we've done for years, up until this goes live, is someone comes to the counter, they talk with a planner, and we advise them on what type of permits they need. And we tell them what materials they need. And there's that collaborative process to which they end up coming in and submitting an application. We take it in, we log it into the system and create a project file, and then we start working on it. What we've tried to do is, instead of a member of the public going through a long list of projects, at some point when it goes live, it'll be public hearing project there. And they submit just public hearing project. And the planner does everything like we did at the counter. We set up the project. If they are missing something, we talk to the person. We try to get everything set up very cleanly at the beginning so that it will move them through the process faster. And they're not having to work as hard trying to figure out what they need. So I know that it's not live yet, but I wanted you to get a sense of our vision. It's from the very beginning, we've tried to model this after the public counter. So I'm going to do an administrative sign permit application, and you just type in the name. I'm just going to do test. Number of signs, you can put in a number here, and square footage. Type of signs, I'm going to do wall sign. Sign locations, north elevation.
Is the applicant filling this out, or
Yes.
is the planner?
Yes, the applicant
Okay.
submits this, yeah. Sign sizes, it might be 4 feet by 10 feet. Return depth, and there's these little hover notes. So examples or little tips on what they could do. And the little stars are required fields. We're gonna do 4 inches here. Trim cap will be 1 inch. Halo lighting. Is all lighting shielded? Yes. Sign materials, we'll do pin mounted letters. Are the proposed signs consistent with the master sign program? No sign program, or yes, consistent? So I'll do yes, consistent. Have you attached the required plans? And there's information on what that would maybe mean. Okay. Yes. They're gonna go down here. Do you have landlord approval? Yes.
Where's the attach button?
It's down at the bottom. Is your application complete and accurate to the best of your knowledge? Yes. We're gonna have to search for a location, so I'll do this building. And then file name, I hope I have a file here. I will do my PowerPoint. And that didn't work, okay. Okay, then next step. And various applications are like this, they just have fields that are customized to that sort of request. I don't know if there's really much more to go through. I mean, it depends on how long this takes. I think that there's some hang up here.
How big was your PowerPoint?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so applicant information, owner information, depending on what's relevant, architect information, they could put contacts, whatever contact information that's pertinent. And then they click next step. And then the fee amount is in there. They would do submit. This is where you would pay. So you could pay by credit card. There's the processing fee if you use a credit card, or you could do a check. And then once you submit that, then it goes into the system. And they will be given a project number. The planner, if it's a minor application, then the person that's working the public counter will get that application in their like menu, and they would look at it and make sure that it has everything that they need. If they have to, they'll contact the applicant and let them know if they need something else. And then they just process the application. But I think this kind of gives you an idea of what the customer would be doing. Do you have questions?
We'll start with Commissioner Prescott Loeffler.
Christopher, when you say the counter contacts the applicant, is it through the website or is it a phone call?
It would be whatever is necessary. So the planner would
Can you
most
le-
likely contact them by phone.
Can they put their comments? Is there any place for the counter to put their comments of missing, this is missing, so they can keep track of their project?
In the system, we can type notes, so it'd be tied to the project number. And
And then-
in the back end, what we work with, it would go into the system, and if they type in their project number, they would get those notes.
Okay, so they would have communication that way?
Yes.
Okay.
So with the public hearing project, specific to that, when we have different steps in the review process. So it might be like a meeting or filing a notice or writing a letter or something. We are to put those notes in the system, and then an applicant can type that project number in, and whenever they want, they could see what is being done with their project.
So if I have a submittal, then it will tell me maybe it's on, this person is handling it or been assigned to it, and it will say the date that it was
Yes.
assigned? Perfect, thank you.
Is it clear to the public that, like you said, oh, well, a building permit, you apply for a permit, but if it's a planning issue, it's called a project. Is that made clear somewhere, kind of on the home screen or whatever, so that people are directed down the right path?
I don't think no, I don't think it says that. I think if it's a project, I mean, at the beginning, it has your dashboard, and actually, I mean, it really comes down to our website. So when you go to departments, a planning application, it's here. That's how you're getting to there. If you're applying for a building permit, It's right here, building permit. So the website is really how it directs people in that way. And each division has a website that explains the process.
So if you clicked down through that building permit link on the website and got to track it that way, I'm just wondering if, well, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity for confusion there, would be my guess. And then you said it's not up and running yet? Is that accurate?
For the administrative type applications, it's up and running. So what I just showed you, the list of permit
Right.
types, those are online.
Okay,
The public hearing projects that go before the planning commission, that's expected to go live next month.
okay, what about for the building permit side?
The building permit side, they're taking in applications. I can't speak to how many applications they're taking in. I think it's a majority of their applications now.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, is there a summary anywhere of the activity that occurs on this so the applicant knows when they submitted it, when the staff got it, when the staff responded to it? Because the clock starts at each one of those steps.
This gets to what I had said, that at that dashboard here, you have applications in process.
So that would be
So-
logged in by the planner?
It's just,
Or
it's
does it
not.
just occur?
It's not showing it now because on the back end, this just came in, so the planner would be checking a couple things. But when the process is started, you're creating an electronic record. So everything goes into that project file. And this is a portal where you go there and you can type in the project and you could see the history that you're asking about. So you could see when it was assigned to somebody, when did it go to development management team, were there comments, you could get the files that were
So
attached.
staff is the one that's filling
Yes.
that information in. Very good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the same thing with building permits.
Yeah.
Right now, you could go on there and you could see the building division reviewed it, when is it due, and, did they have corrections or not? We also have reviews for projects.
Yeah, use
So
that
does
one.
planning look at it and building, and you could see when are they supposed to look at it, and all of that information is supposed to go in there.
Any more? I got a couple questions here. First of all, thank you for being here tonight and giving us this information. We've been really excited to hear about this for several months, so we're grateful that you could be here. And the information is good. I wanted to ask your opinion about a couple of features that I may or may not be there. One feature is notifications. In the user profile, can you put your phone number, your cell phone, can you put your email, and when there is a step that they need to take or a status update, will they get a notification?
I'm not aware of that, like an auto notification.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that
Is-
feature.
And maybe this is for Jonathan, I don't know, but is there a way to put that on a feature list suggestion or put that into somebody's, I guess, roadmap to consider for a future feature inclusion? That would be a suggestion I would, pass on to the right person if there's a place to pass it on to.
Yeah, I think, sure, we can take in suggestions. I do know that there's limitations within the software.
Right, this is
And
package
so we'd have to
software.
explore it,
Yeah.
and decide at what point.
Yeah, my understanding is this is package software that the city's purchased, and customization of it is not easy or maybe not even desirable, right?
Yes.
And so it's just really a question of, is it a feature that can be activated? And if so, I think that would be helpful. Another suggestion is, and again, it may not be permitted in this software, is when an applicant or a user selects the different kind of project, and then that screen's up there for them to start filling in. Is there a way or a place that we could start listing links to the associated area of our municipal code that would be applicable to that particular project, so that if they're at all uncertain about the standards or what's allowed, what's not allowed, the links are right there, and they could click on them and go right to the area that's pertinent to their project?
We could explore that. I generally favor people to talk to a planner. That's
Okay.
my experience, because even if you send them to the code, I've found talking to someone and understanding what they want to do
Sure.
can cut off a lot of time for
Sure.
them.
If that's, typically automation is desire to help be self-help, but if the management decides that it's better for them to call, then, maybe we could also surface that on the screen somewhere too. Have a question, call this number, ask for this department or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's clear to the user what they're supposed to do.
And that is the very beginning step that I was
Okay.
mentioning here.
Has a phone
At the
number?
top, it has a phone number. It also, on every application, I made a point of, at the very beginning, of have you spoken with the planner?
Okay,
And that it's recommended.
good, great, okay. That's all. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right, Christopher, thank you very much for a great presentation, and congratulations. This is great. We hope you guys continue to develop it and enhance it and keep us informed. We appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, is that all for you?
That's what I have, yep.
Cool. We're going to move on then to item 5, which is the minutes from our last meeting from September 20th. Anyone have any comments about the minutes? A motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 6, oral or written communication. Do we have any member of the audience tonight that would like to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda? So we have the Nielsen projects that we don't want to hear about that, but if there's any other comments that anyone wants to make about anything else, now would be the time. Okay, seeing no one responding to that, having no blue cards, item 7 is the consent calendar. We don't have any items there, so we'll move on to item 8, which is a public hearing. And this is for item 8A, Cultural Heritage Permit 22-148, and Architectural Permit 22-162, Nielsen Residence at 222 West Mariposa. I will now open the public hearing and quickly just scan my colleagues to see if there's any disclosures or ex parte communications that anyone wants to share.
Yes, I have been to the site, I've met with the owners, I've talked with them on multiple occasions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Commissioner Crandall and I have, obviously, as members of Design Review, have seen this project and spoken with the applicant and the architect at the Design Review meetings. And with that, I think we will move on to the presentation from our staff, which I believe is Mr. Wright again.
Yes. Good
Welcome
evening.
back.
Thank you. This is the Nielsen Residence. It is a request for a culture heritage permit because it is a site on the city's list of designated historic structures. And it is also an architectural permit request to add, to get a height increase for an accessory dwelling unit. The code allows 18 feet And with the architectural permit, you could go up to the height limit of the zone, which is 25 feet. So this is a site plan. It shows that the orange shape there is the more the original footprint of the building. There were a couple changes there, but it's what people have come to know as the historic building. And behind it, there were a number of additions made. Those are non-significant additions. So when you look at the site plan there, behind that orange shape, you're going to see a red outline, and that is the proposed first floor. And then the blue shaded area is a proposed second floor. Overall, the project would add 956 square feet when you consider that they'd be removing those non-significant additions that were done in the, I think, the 60s. So that includes a first-story addition and a second-story addition. And then off to the right, you're going to see a new garage proposed with a second-story accessory dwelling in it. And that's what requires that height exception. To accommodate that, they would need to add a driveway with a new curb cut. You could see that driveway, hopefully you could see my mouse here, through these trees here. Now, what's unique to this property is it's also its significance for its gardens. So this was Frank Ulrich's property. He was Ole Hansen's gardener. And the gardens are significant on this property with I will use my report to describe this. It is an eclectic mix of California gardenesque and 20th century Mediterranean garden. It has a mix of imported trees and succulents, including Asian plants. It has an interesting mix of natural stone mosaic work. It has a greenhouse, lath house, which are right here. These two structures. There's a fountain. There was a koi pond that's been filled in over here. There's a number of these interesting mosaic concrete paver mix stone pathways on the property. And what would be proposed here is to do this driveway, they would be saving these trees but trimming them back. And the minimum width driveway would be proposed that engineering would accept to get to the garage. Any paving that has some significance would be relocated elsewhere on the property. And there's these two significant bonsai trees here that are in the public right-of-way, as well as this yucca tree, and I'll speak to that later. There's a proposed low-level wall here and gates to have some more security, because there's been members of the public that have just walked onto the property. And there's two sheds proposed in the very far backs of the property. And that pretty much describes the nature of the project. I will now show the elevation. So here you have the original building, and then behind it, this is the addition. So there'll be a roof deck and the first story addition. Now keep in mind, they're removing the existing additions that are not significant, replacing it. And like I said, the first level would be a 223 square foot addition. On the second level would be a 733 square foot addition. This would be the garage behind, and then the ADU up above, with matching Spanish colonial revival architecture, you could see. Oh, sorry. What's this instead? Okay, so this is the left addition. You're gonna see the porte-cochere. Here's the original footprint of the building. They've insetted the first level. a little bit to distinguish where the original and the new is proposed. This is the second-story addition. The original roof framing members would be preserved, but they'd be building up the roof just for drainage purposes, but it would keep the original members intact. This is the other side of the building. Again, this is the historic footprint, and then this is the addition proposed. This is the rear elevation. You could see the original footprint here, and this is the addition. This is the new building here. You could see the lath house and the other historic elements over here. So now getting to the sidewalk and trees. These trees that are circled are those bonsai trees, and they have historic significance. If you were to put a sidewalk in, you'd have to remove those trees. So this was quite a discussion topic unique to this project. Normally, when you do a project of this size, you have to put in a sidewalk. And there needs to be quite special circumstances not to do that. Typically, it's gonna be like a big grade change, something like that. In this case, the applicant is requesting city manager approval of a sidewalk waiver. So that is not a decision for the planning commission. However, the planning commission can forward a recommendation to the city manager on whether they should approve a sidewalk waiver. And staff supports the waiver. So the way that this would work is there's a Mills Act contract on this property, and there's a number of conditions that are proposed in which when those two bonsai trees die, then within 1 year, a sidewalk would have to be installed. There would also be a need to do other improvements. So that might mean some landscaping work, right, to adjust for that sidewalk. There is a condition tied to an arborist memo that would be provided when we do our Mills Act inspections, which are about every 5 years, so that staff would have a means to monitor the health of the trees. There would be revised plans that show what would things look like when the sidewalk goes in and what would be done in the meantime. So there's a number of maintenance things that need to be done out there until those trees die. There's some items that need to be pushed back so that people can get out of their cars adjacent to the curb. And then the standard encroachment permit that's required to have items in the public right of way. So that's the nature of this issue and what staff is recommending. And that leaves us with a recommendation to find the projects exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, to adopt a resolution approving the project, and then supporting a sidewalk waiver for city manager approval. That concludes my presentation.
Good job, Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if there are any commission questions on the staff report itself. We'll just start at the end.
Thank you, Christopher. I have been up and down that street. I don't recall there being a sidewalk on that side of the street anywhere. Am I wrong?
We can pull it up and look down there.
Would they, once assume that we agree that they should receive the waiver, would they be the only house that would be required to put a sidewalk in?
Our municipal code ties a sidewalk to a project.
To the project?
Yeah.
So it would be maybe a section of sidewalk that would be put in, and then the balance of the street would be without a sidewalk?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
That's because the alternative would to do something like an assessment on properties to put a sidewalk in all at once for the city to do it. And the city's policy for quite some time has been to tie it to a project instead. So that might mean that the sidewalk is phased in over time, but that's the trade-off, is either do it all at once with an assessment or do it over time.
which would narrow the street and be an awkward sidewalk. Just be out in front of the property and no other sidewalks to attach to it. Okay, that answers my question, thank you.
I'm going to just do a quick
You wanna chime
one,
in?
even though this is for questions. There's a sidewalk to the west, the property on the west, but it's piecemeal, and I don't think it's ADA path of travel compliant. So you're absolutely right. There'd be nothing continuous that's ADA compliant.
Yeah, it's just it just would be one sidewalk in the middle of a street. Not in the middle of the street, but just in the middle of the block, I should say.
Right.
Which, with no connections. It does seem awkward.
Towards the end, I think maybe it was your last slide or near the last slide, it said that they had to get a encroachment permit. Was that only for at the time that they would have to build a sidewalk? Is that it, or what is the
No.
encroachment permit for?
They need to record an easement to the property for the future sidewalk. And because there's public property in which the city would be allowing items to be in the public property, an encroachment permit is to indemnify the city and specify like maintenance until those trees die and the sidewalk goes in. That's a standard condition when someone has an item in the public right-of-way they wish to maintain.
You said that it would be for an easement. What easement would it be? Because the sidewalk, any future sidewalk would be in the public right-of-way, correct?
Correct.
So what would the easement be for?
The easement would to outline that a sidewalk will be going on that portion of the property. Is to record an easement to the deed of the property showing the limits of that sidewalk.
But the sidewalk would be in the public right-of-way. I don't understand why there would be an easement in the public right-of-way.
There would
Chris?
be a wraparound on the property.
So the easement condition is recommended by Public Works anytime that the full ADA width of a sidewalk can't be accommodated completely within the public right-of-way. So if you take a look at some of the plans, like I'm seeing A2.1 at the back, for instance, there's a portion of the sidewalk, including and most commonly like the up and around driveways that encroaches into the private property. And so the city needs to record an easement agreement in those situations where a portion of the public sidewalk does cross that property line into a portion of the private property.
Okay, so yeah, I'm familiar with that condition. So are you guys proposing to take a strip along the entire frontage because the sidewalk's not wide enough? Or are
My
we talking about
understand-
around a driveway approach, or what are we talking about?
My understanding is that the right-of-way is of sufficient width for the sidewalk, but that the easement would be for the wraparounds.
Okay, but we're not because at one point there was talk about wrapping the sidewalk behind the bonsai trees. We're not talking about that, correct?
Correct.
So we're only talking about around the back of a drive approach to make sure that it's kind of ADA compliant. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
When the sidewalk is installed in the future, assuming city manager approval of a waiver.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we talking at all about, you mentioned and discussed the bonsai trees. What about the yucca tree? Is that in the similar condition? Does the yucca tree have to die before the sidewalk gets built, or how does the yucca tree, what's the yucca tree thing?
The yucca tree, no, the condition is not tied to the health of the yucca tree. It's in the report as not a tree of as significance as the bonsai trees. However, we do include in the condition that yucca tree be replanted, on the property because it does have aesthetic value, but that could be deferred, to when the bonsai trees are replaced.
When you say replanted, are you talking about dug up and relocated that exact tree, or cut that one down and replace it with other yucca tree?
That's up to the owner. If they wish to replant it, they could, or they could plant a new one. We didn't spell it out in the conditions. That's open to There's options.
Okay, do you know approximately the trunk size of that yucca? I mean, it's not a small yucca, correct, around the trunk? It's
Correct.
very large. So I would think that trying to dig it up and relocate it would be excessively expensive. If they were to replace it, would they be required a certain replacement amount, or one yucca tree, 24-inch box would be sufficient?
24-inch box, but we don't specify in the conditions what they have to do. We just say that you have to replace the yucca tree.
Okay. You also mentioned earlier something about, I think it was in the encroachment permit, that they had to be obligated to maintain, I'm assuming it's the trees that are in the public right-of-way?
Yes, they need to maintain the public right-of-way if we're going to allow plant material in the trees in the public right-of-way.
So many properties have parkways with landscaping in them in the public right-of-way. Do you require the same thing of them if they come in for a project?
I am not aware of a property west of the freeway like this, where there's plantings in the public right-of-way, where the city's granting a waiver to maintain those plants there, unlike something like Talega, where there's a defined maintenance plan where the HOA is, they have responsibilities for maintaining parkways. So I don't think this is similar to other situations I'm aware of west of the freeway.
Well, so you just said something interesting. It's because of the sidewalk waiver that you're requiring it, not because the property just to the west has plantings in the public right-of-way. They might not be historically significant, and they might not have a sidewalk waiver, but they do have plantings in the public right-of-way. I mean, there's lots of trees and landscaping in public right-of-way.
There's a lot of conditions west of the freeway where they've been there for years. And, as a project comes forward and we're reviewing it for compliance with the code, we apply the code. Sometimes people do things without approvals, or they just were there, and when they come in with the project, we're going to review that site on its own merits. This is a situation where they're doing a project and the city has property in which they want to maintain these items. So, no, we're not treating them uniquely. It comes down to this: either the city pays to maintain the trees and the plants there, or the property owner does. It's that decision.
Commissioners, if I could interject real quick. Outside of our Title 17 zoning code, there's a maintenance provision. This is Section 12-24020 of our municipal code. And it's citywide, a standard that tree and landscape will be maintained by private property owners when they have landscaping that encroaches into the public right-of-way. So this condition may make it clear in this particular instance, but that is a standard occurrence throughout the city to maintain landscaping that's adjacent to the, or encroaches into the public right-of-way.
Well, thank you for clarifying, and that's exactly the point, right? Property owners all over town maintain the landscaping in the public right-of-way, but they don't have to get an encroachment permit with an obligation to do that. I've, in all the time I've sat up here, I don't think I've ever seen a project where we required somebody to essentially sign a maintenance agreement for something that's already in the public code that they have to maintain anyway. Not to mention the fact that it's kind of sort of in their best interest to maintain the trees and keep them alive so they don't have to put in the sidewalk. So it just seems kind of excessive and unnecessary and different than I've seen it before. Maybe you guys have seen other cases where you've made them pull an encroachment permit for that, but I haven't. I'm done with my time.
Just as a point of clarification, I know I want to keep moving down. Christopher, what condition number is being discussed right now? If you want to look it up, maybe, I'll give you a minute to look it up, and then.
There's a condition 7.17 that
Seven.
requires planting of replacement trees, construction of sidewalk and associated with public improvements, then 1 year following the death of the trees. There's a condition 4.15 that requires an administrative encroachment permit. And that's, I think, the one.
The two?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a couple others, but those are the
That's what's,
ones that are really being discussed right now.
Commissioner McCann's point is reflected in 4.15, I think. Okay, great. Chair Pro Tem McCacken, did you have questions?
The previous remodels or, additions, were they done with the permit?
I
Like in
didn't,
96? Or
I-
just by a photograph, you could tell that something was done around 1996?
I did not research that.
Yeah, because being on planning commission in other cities, asking for an easement in the public right-of-way or setting up is pretty standard if this is like the first time since the original construction of the house, which back in the 30s and 20s would not have anything that says anything about the front, well, I don't know if San Clemente had that in 1926 or whenever it was, but it's pretty standard, planning and mapping, that it's understood that the city has the easement and the right what is it, 15, 20 feet? I don't know what it is here, 12 feet, that if there was ever going to be a future sidewalk. My other question is, why did they put the laundry for the ADU outside of the ADU?
I would like the applicant to answer that.
That they didn't put a
Architect can
little,
answer that.
upper, lower washer dryer in the ADU rather than having a, walkway over to the laundry, which is kind of like an old 1950s sort of plan. And if you have an older person, that's a ways to walk, but that's the only really other question I had.
Okay, that can be, if the applicant's hearing that, they can address that during their time. Commissioner Crandall, you,
Yeah, my comment on the sidewalk is basically the city's position is you put a sidewalk in. Boom. Being historic, and it was something that was basically negotiated between staff and the applicant, that they're comfortable with the solution that's before us. And, Michael, if you could address that when you make your presentation, that'd be great.
other questions?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, Commissioner McCann.
Thank you. So, condition 4.15C on page 2 says, improvements such as garden walls, private trees, et cetera, within the street right-of-way require the approval of an administrative minor encroachment permit to be approved prior to the issuance of building permits. So does that mean improvements to be constructed or existing improvements?
It could be either one, it's improvements, like there are going to need to be some improvements made to that area to make it function for people to get out of their cars. There's some rocks that will have to be moved, plants trimmed back, so you could say that. And then in the future, there would need to be improvements for putting in the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make a note, if I could, that this is a unique situation. And, at first, staff, the code does say you need a sidewalk. That's pretty common. That's normally the case. But staff tried to find a way to work with the applicant, recognizing the uniqueness of this situation and the importance of these trees. To remove these trees would have, in staff's view, have an impact on the significance of the property. And so that's why we're supportive of a waiver.
In our city, do we actually, if there are no sidewalks on the whole block, do we make that one property owner put in a sidewalk?
Yes. if
Because
they
in
do a
other cities,
project.
it's been if the city decides at some later date to sidewalk like one side or 5 houses at a time, then that's when that hits. You still have the easement. It's when, you know, you do the project. But in the other city that I used to be on the planning commission, it was not very often that, unless it was already a project where there were already sidewalks all around. You know, they didn't necessarily mandate one place, say if it was built in the 20s and there are no sidewalks at all of a sudden somebody comes and remodels and make that one property, you know, do the sidewalk, even if there was an absence of plants on the street, you know, in that easement. So we
Yeah.
make them do it.
Yes, the
So
city
there could be
policy.
13
and-
houses on that street, and that's the only house that has a sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. You good with that?
That's it.
Yeah, okay. That is city policy, right? So that's a city council type of conversation.
Change,
It's
right?
in the municipal code. as
Yep.
well. Yep.
Therefore, I'm going to move us along, but I do want to, on my opportunity, ask a question of you, Christopher, want to pick up on Commissioner McCann's train of thought regarding condition 4.15, number C. So if the Nielsen's want to do maintenance on their landscaping in this area, you mentioned plant trimming. Can they do it, or do they need to approach the city for an encroachment permit?
They're required to do it, however, the engineering department has, this is a standard condition of approval, 4.15, but they're recommending some changes to it.
Okay,
The changes are related to how much right-of-way there is, but there's really not many changes here. You know, it's,
I didn't see it, and my question is coming from the perspective of incentives, right? If the city puts an incentive in front of somebody to do something, they're going to probably do it. If they put a disincentive, like, hey, you want to trim your plants, keep it orderly, come get a permit, that's a disincentive, it seems to me. And so that's what I'm trying to make sure we're not inadvertently doing, is putting in place a disincentive, that for every time they want to move a rock, they want to plant, maybe a bush dies, they want to replace it, that they have to come to the city for a permit to do that.
no, that's not the intent. The intent is to have, this is not something that goes through many weeks and challenging process. This is a staff level process.
But at all, like, so if a
Uh,
plant dies, they've
no.
got to come here to City Hall?
No, they
Okay.
don't need to come in regularly and talk to us. What we want to do is have a meeting with the owner, which we purposely set it up the way we have.
Okay,
To to not slow the project down, that we would have a discussion with them and look at the property and say, these are some things that we need you to do so that people can get out of their car. And, you know, as part of this, they would give us a revised plan that just shows what they want to do and whether it's good enough to have that egress out of cars. And then they would just maintain that plan. you know.
then that's the intent of 4.15C.
That is the intent. There's a condition in here for revised plans. That is 4.16. And they would submit revised plans that show two things. One is what would the public right-of-way, how would it be maintained as long as those trees are there?
This is
And then-
1.16 you're talking about?
4.16 is
Yeah,
to submit.
I'm focused on the one prior, 4.15,
They're
number C.
related, they're related though.
Oh, okay,
They're related because 4.15 is an encroachment permit, which we've been talking about, and it says something about maintenance. Rather than it be arbitrary and speak to your point about coming back and forth with the
Yes.
city and all that.
Yep.
Instead of doing that, to be clear, we would just work with them to come up with a plan for the public right-of-way. And until the bonsai trees are dead, this is how the property is going to be maintained.
okay.
And we come to an agreement on that, and they just maintain it. And then when the trees do die and they put in the sidewalk, the plan's going to show, what does that look like with sidewalk in?
Right. Not to belabor the point, but maybe as we progress here in our hearing, would you just think about the ramifications of removing C from 4.15? Because I'm going to ask you that later. So I'll just give you a chance to think about that. Okay. Here's the process at this point. We've asked our questions of staff. We've heard the staff report. The next step is going to be to hear from the applicant. They'll have 10 minutes. Then members of the public will have an opportunity. There are blue speaker cards in the back. We encourage any member of the public that wants to speak after the applicant to fill that out and bring it forward. And then if there are public comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to those. Then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have our discussion. So with that, I will invite the applicant to come forward and make their presentation. I see Mr. Luna here is going to speak for the applicant. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Michael Luna. I'm the architect for the project. City staff. I'm here with David and Amy Nielsen, proud owners of 222 West Mariposa. Also, Mr. Jim Pekarsky, the landscape architect. He's here to answer any questions pertaining to landscape architecture. A little bit of history is really important here. I've had the unique distinction of being an architect in town for a while, and this 222 Mariposa project has a long history in my office. I can't tell you how many times I have been approached over the years, and I know city staff has been approached as well, to see what can be done with this property. It was on the market 2 or 3 different times over the course of many years, and every time I'd get a call on this property, can we tear down this property? I want to build, there's 3 lots here. I want to build, the zoning code says I can build 7 units here. And I try to explain to her, this is historic property. You really, this is not going to work for 7 years. You just can't tear this thing down. And I can't tell you how many people really wanted to push this. They've tried to squeeze units in here in their minds and so forth. And I've kind of had to fight them off for years. And I said to myself, my gosh, I hope someone buys this property that wants, it's a unique property with all of this open space and this history to it. I hope someone comes along and buys this property and gives this property the care and attention to keep it a single-family residence and thereby preserve the historic nature of the property. And sure enough, I got the call from the Nielsen's, would I like to work with them to help renovate and improve the property, and I jumped at the opportunity. So we have a unique owner here who's absolutely dedicated to wanting to preserve this old house, fix it up. It's fallen apart, and the property needs some revitalization. The approach here, I was wondering, Chris, if you can pull up the site plan.
Sure.
That landscape site plan that you had up. So I said to myself, all right, well, they need more square footage, and they've got an existing addition behind the existing house that is so dilapidated. It was done so poorly. And fortunately, they built it in back of the property, but it's so bad, it just had to have been torn down. So when I was asked to look at this, they certainly could not live in this small existing historic portion. They need an addition. They have extended family, and they need more square feet. So we went down the path of saying, all right, well, what's historic here and what isn't? What is our character defining features to this property? And we identified through a horticulturist and through research, quite a bit of history of researching old photographs of the property. Fortunately, Mr. Ulrich's family, some survivors of his family, were available to the Nielsen's, and they shared old photographs and so forth. So we were able to rebuild what was original and what wasn't, not only for the main structure, but for the landscape, including the trees and significant plantings. The items shown in gray here, including the 2 bonsais out on the sidewalk, were things that were determined professionally by experts to determine that they were original. And so we said, okay, well, guess what? We're not touching those. And so we said, well, the Nielsen's need a garage. They need a garage by code. Where are we going to put a garage? Well, we certainly didn't want to put it forward of the historic property. We didn't want to put it in the big, long, grand, long yard, lawn area, which again, I think is a character-defining feature. We have a huge pine tree in the back left corner that looks kind of like a big star cluster back there. It's a huge Norfolk pine, very mature. As we said, we've just got to stay away from all of those things. So how do we get a garage in here? So we looked at the right side of the property and said to ourselves, you know, with some very careful tree trimming and the removal of non-historic planting, we can squeeze a driveway, kind of like a tunnel, through the landscape, through these branches and so forth, and carve. There's a path there to get to the back. And in the back right-hand corner is a lawn area with no historic planting around it at all. So we said, well, let's carve a kind of a cool, carved-out tunnel through the trees to get back to this garage. They have a need for an ADU. We said, well, where are we going to put that? Well, we don't want to impact the site any further, so let's put it on top of the garage, where it doesn't interfere with the gardens and the landscape feel and the historic nature of this open space. So we said, well, let's stack it there. That way it reduces the footprint and the impact to the landscaping. So that's how we arrived at the structure in the back rear. And then we said to ourselves, as far as the addition, we said, well, we don't want to impact the gardens and the site. Let's rebuild the one-story portion, including a two-story portion, back where the original old addition is, back behind the house. Again, so we don't impact those small structures between the ADU and the addition back there. And we certainly have to stay away from that Norfolk pine. Said, well, let's get the square footage back there. And as a result of working with design review, we said, let's make sure that the addition, the second-story portion, is behind the original footprint of the main structure in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards. So that's how we arrived at this design. And we certainly feel it's very defensible. We did have work with Urbana Preservation, historic resource experts out of San Diego, and they feel, as well as I feel, that we conform to the Secretary of Interior standards. Let's see. We've worked very hard on this, all of us, between Urbana, the landscape architect, city staff, and so forth, to make sure we're hopefully presenting the best solution possible for this property. This whole discussion about the sidewalk, and I'm hoping you might grant me a little bit more time since I'm addressing your questions already that came up earlier in your conversation. So the sidewalk came down to this issue of, look, we've got historic trees, and the bonsais really were very special, as was determined to Mr. Ulrich. He trimmed these trees, planted these things, and in accordance with bonsai, they take all of this maintenance and so forth. He put all kinds of work into those trees. And so in order to preserve that, we said, well, we really want them to stay. We'd like to have this landscaping stay. And then we hear from the engineering department, and of course, they have a standard condition that says if you're spending more than $50,000 on any project, you've got to do a sidewalk. So we said, well, look, we've got historic preservation on one side, and we've got engineering concerns on the other. And ultimately, what we have and what the proposal is in front of you is this compromise that hopefully we can get the sidewalk eventually once these historic trees die. Because these trees do have a lifespan, and at some point they will leave us. But we do see those, as well as Urbana preservation, and everybody that is concerned that is they are character-defining features to the property as far as the landscape element is concerned. The city's, just for clarity, the city's landscape, sidewalk policy is that they hope over time, as project comes, one at a time, and as they enforce these sidewalks on development, they hope that over time, the sidewalks will get filled in over the course of many, many years, but that's how long it's going to take. But they figure one at a time, they'll get a sidewalk, one at a time, and they'll all eventually connect. And so that's how engineering has viewed their sidewalk policy. I'd like to turn over my remaining time to the Nielsen's, please, if I may. I know they have a comment or two that they'd like to share.
I think it looks like we got 2 seconds.
Oh, but I had extra time because I
Okay,
was
as long
answering their
as-
questions.
Are you all okay with that? That's your call.
This is a rule we have for consistency purposes. It's not really, so if that's okay, I mean, you're the only public hearing tonight, we could probably go another couple of minutes, but since that's the only public hearing, is that violating our code of conduct if we did that for tonight?
I would recommend just keeping it at the 10 minutes, which has been met, but then you can, of course, ask him questions,
Very good, okay,
or the applicant
Yes.
questions as well.
Thank you very much.
okay.
That
Stay up there
concludes
just
my
if you don't mind. Are there any questions of the architect?
Not the architect, of the applicant.
Okay, let's make sure with Mr. Luna before. Any questions for the architect? Gary, no? For the architect.
How about the washer dryer question I asked?
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me about that.
Why it
We
wasn't
do not
incorporated in the ADU.
propose,
Thank you.
For the ADU, the washer and dryer will go within the unit of the ADU. It is not satellite at all. So I'm not sure, and I hope that the plans were not confusing on that, but we intend to put the washer and dryer for the ADU within the ADU, no place else. And for the main residence, that'll have internal washer and dryer as well.
So that little appendage won't be there anymore?
I'm not sure what your point.
There's an external, like a outside, like a dirty room laundry, right?
I think that's the trash cans.
It has washer dryer, it has, right, WD, washer dryer.
That might be a computer glitch or something. Apologize for the
Washer, dryer,
confusion.
sink.
But absolutely, we're putting the washer and dryer in the
Okay, it even says laundry.
ADU.
All right.
Sorry for the confusion.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of the owners? Commissioner Crandall?
Yeah, would you give your response to, you've reviewed the conditions of approval,
Mr. Nielsen, please feel free to come on up. Thank you.
reviewed the conditions of approval and the package that you've kind of, not negotiated, but worked with for a long time. You've been in this process for a long time. And are you comfortable with those conditions of approval?
I am, for the most part. And I appreciate Mr. Camp's comments. The encroachment, I was a little bit unclear on. I understand the intent. And the intent is for us to do the best we can to really serve two masters. One is the desire to have a sidewalk and safety so that we don't have children and folks getting hit in front of the house. I fully support that. The other is, we've got these historically significant plants that we don't want to rip out to put in a sidewalk. So I kind of threw it to the city and I said, I don't have the answer. I'm okay. You tell me what you want, and that's what we will propose. So we looked at the wraparound, but I would be able to hand a cup of coffee to people, through the dining room window there, and that wasn't at all feasible. So I think what we've come up with is probably the best. The plants stay around as long as they're willing and able. We're going to continue to maintain them. I think one of the comments I was going to make is, when we bought the place, it was in really poor disrepair. It had been a rental for well over a decade. Unfortunately, some of the significant plantings were removed, rose bushes, fruit trees, et cetera. But my wife is a really good gardener and has brought that garden back to life, and has plans to continue to do so. So we're happy to maintain those plants, and we're fine signing the kind of the addendum to the Mills Act, saying that when those plants die within a year, we put in the sidewalk, and we're okay putting together the plan of what the plantings will look like in the interim, along with the city. My only concern there, and I had some questions for the city engineer, who I've sent a message to. I haven't heard back, but I just don't want there to be, when you guys don't understand it, that makes me scared, because you guys do this for a living, and this is my first time, and so I just want to make sure there's no misunderstandings, because that's what ruins relationships. And, Chris and I have been working 3 years now, Chris, we've been trying to get this one over the finish line, and Jonathan, and so I want to maintain a good relationship with the city. We intend to die in this property. Sorry, sweetheart, my daughter's here. But hopefully that's not sooner than later, but we love it. When we saw this place online, my buddy looked at it and he FaceTimed me. And we were living in San Francisco, and I bought it, or I put in my offer with just seeing it on FaceTime. And he knows Amy really well, and he said, Amy will never run out of projects. This is a special property, and it deserves to be brought back to its original glory. We can't recapture the 6 lots, those 3 that were sold and, developed behind the house. But we certainly can bring back the 3 that still exist. And this will be a diamond for the community. And, you can see the lawn. We had our son's wedding there. We had 100 people there for a party. It doesn't feel crowded. And we want to continue to do that. We have movies I call it movies in the park, and we invite the neighbors over, and I have a projection screen, and we sit there in our lawn chairs, and, I don't want to lose that. I don't think the city wants to lose that. Yes, putting up a multi-unit property would be the best and highest use, but that's not our goal. We want a family compound feel. By the way, the ADU is for my wife's twin sister, who had stage 4 cancer, had an abusive husband, and has been living with us for a few years and will likely live with us for the rest of her life. So we've committed to taking care of her, and that's where we're going to put hers. So she has her own entrance, and she has her own laundry and kitchen, and she can take care of herself but not have to worry about how she's going to pay for it. So that's what the ADU is for. And so I'm excited to get started. The house is... We've spent thousands of dollars on plumbers just coming up with the thing they got to shove down there, because our pipes are bad, they're cracked, and we still have knob and tube electrical wiring that shorts out, and we have leaky roof, and we have mold. If this was a horse, it would have been shot a long time ago, but this is a great property that's going to really be something we can all be proud of when we get done. And I do want to address, I know that Larry Culbertson sent a letter kind of last minute.
Chair Cosgrove, I think we are
Expanding
beyond
the-
the question.
Okay, sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
Can
sorry.
we pause you there?
100%.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Crandall? Are there any other commission questions for Mr. Nielsen? Okay, we're going to have to leave it there.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Thank you so
Gina,
much.
thanks for cutting me off.
Okay.
No problem.
Now we are going to turn to the public comment portion of the public hearing. We do have one speaker card, so I'll call that speaker up now. Anita Luck. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you. We have the little timer system there.
No problem. Hi, my name is Anita Luck. I live on West Marquita, and I live next to another historic property. I am here to speak in support of this project. I think that they have done a wonderful job keeping all the new additions to the back of the property and keeping all the features of the property. I think that they have looked after this property very well, and the gardens, they are correct, have not looked any better than they are looking right now. And I've wandered around, I've been one of those people wandering around the property. Anyway, and so I just wanted to speak in favor of the project and say thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments tonight. Seeing no other public comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Is that okay with staff? No,
Should we read in Culberson's letter? It was requested.
I don't have a copy of, what is the Culberson's letter that you're referring to? I don't have a copy of that.
That was, the letter that was referenced was emailed to the Planning Commission around 4:30 PM today. Unfortunately, my laptop just died, so I don't have access to read that. If someone does have their email, they're welcome to.
I can pull mine up. Okay, and that's from, you forwarded that, right, Jonathan? Okay, so do you want me to read this into the record?
Can we just say, we'll just include it in the,
Well, it was requested that they.
Oh, it did?
in the letter.
If I could just real quick on that topic generally, and Jenna, please feel free to comment. It's probably best generally that staff does not read emailed letters into the record. There's a specific process for requesting accommodations for participating outside of the normal process. So staff does always forward comment letters, but moving forward, and the commission is always welcome to read any letters, comment in any way that they see fit, but in being fair to all public commenters across all public meetings, it's best that the public commenters are present themselves or have another member of the public present that instead of staff.
Would you share that with me so I could read it? Because at 4:30, I'm on the
If it's
freeway.
not- Go ahead.
Yeah, 4:30, I'm on the freeway, and so I didn't have an opportunity. So if I may
Then-
read this, thank you.
Do we have to say we can't consider that letter if it's not read into the public doesn't have access to it?
No, you can consider it.
But it hasn't been brought into the record.
Well, you can discuss it and bring it into the record if you would
yeah,
like.
that's what I said,
Okay,
we can
that's
take
what we need
action.
to do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to mention the two main points. I'm not going to read the entire document. First of all, I appreciate Larry's service and always his communication. And he normally is here in person, so we want to give him the benefit of that. He's essentially not in support of the project because it's the size. He feels that it's the size and scale and proportion and massing is not proportional to the original house. And that the ADU is, with the 18 feet, it is what the rule is instead of the 22. That's essentially his comment. So, Larry, we hear you, and we've taken note of your concerns, so thank you for that.
Chair, I would allow, since that is a public comment.
Yes, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
To allow the
So
applicant to rebut
either
that.
Mr. Nielsen or Mr. Luna, you have an opportunity now to come and respond to Mr. Culberson's letter, if you so choose. And I would just ask that you just keep it on point and brief. Thank you.
I think what Mr. Culbertson misses here is that the Secretary of Interior standards don't put a specific limit on the size of the addition. The question is whether or not we have preserved the integrity of the historic portion, and the Secretary of Interior standards also makes provisions and relaxes the rules for additions that occur in the rear. We're not proposing the square footage in the front of the historic resource or on the sides. It's occurring in the rear. And the Historic Preservation Secretary of Interior standards, policies relax additions and projects that occur in the rear of the property. Secondly, with regard to the height of the ADU is only 4 feet higher than we're proposing 22 feet. The limit's 18. We do have an exception in the code that allows us to go up to the height limit of the zone, which is 25. And in this particular case, you won't even see the ADU. It's covered by such thick trees on the right front portion of that property that you can't even see the ADU because the landscaping is so dense, and it's going to stay that way. That would be our response to that.
Thank you, Mr. Luna.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Okay, I believe we've had all the public input. If there's no further questions, I'm going to close the public hearing. And now it's commissioner discussion. Who would like to lead us off?
I will. I would say, can we just make sure that the letter's attached to our proceedings?
Jonathan, can you incorporate the letter
'Cause
into
otherwise
our, into our minutes, or?
Yes, it's a part of the, any letters that are
Of the file?
received get included as part of the file as correspondence connected to
Consider that,
projects.
consider that
If
done.
somebody came
Yeah.
along later, they would see that we saw it. I like the project. On a personal note, my wife and I bought a 2.5 acre parcel in Downey that was an old Spanish colonial revival. The neighbors were all concerned that we were going to knock it down and build a multi-family, situation. So I understand your deal, but I think they've done a good job. We did the same thing. The setback is pretty far, in this property. I think with the shrubbery and the trees that they see, you don't really notice the ADU. I think because the old house sits in front of the 2-story, you don't get the, blockiness, and I like it.
Thank you. Mr. Crandall?
Yeah, I'd like to say that very eloquent presentation by the owner. What you see before us today is not what we first saw at design review. It took us a while to get through it, but working with the applicant and design review, what we have today, I think, is something that complies with Secretary of Interior standards, complies with the intent of our historic preservation in the city. The house itself is not being damaged. The renderings themselves show the addition in the rear looking like it's the same face as the front of the house, but it's actually 40 feet back from the front of the house, somewhere about that. And I think the architect's done a wonderful job, and I'm glad that the staff and owner worked together to come up with solutions for the conditions of approval. So I can certainly make the findings that we are being asked to make and the CEQA finding, and I'm in support of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Crandall. Let's move to the other end of the dais, and Commissioner Prescott Loeffler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Normally, I'm always very concerned about setbacks. I have found in past projects with ADUs, they are right at the property line, which always gives me pause for safety reasons. This particular project, because it is a large parcel, has the appropriate amount of setbacks. So I can agree with the ADU in the rear. Allowed is 4 feet, and they have allowed for 5. I normally am not comfortable with raising the height, but they have seemed to keep it under the allowed, which is the 23 feet. And I would agree to move it forward because it does appear that the property is large enough that the large construction will be like tucked away into the property. I would approve this only, however, if there was the waiver of the sidewalk, and you better keep those bonsais alive. And the yucca tree, whatever you have to do to keep them alive, because it would be
Let
very
me
awkward.
understand, you're in favor of the sidewalk waiver?
Yes.
Okay.
To put a sidewalk there is extremely awkward in a neighborhood that does not have sidewalks.
Very good. Okay. Commissioner McCann,
Turn that layer off on the tracks.
your turn.
Thank you. This is a special and unique property. It's very beautiful. The owner said something that's, to me, very disturbing, which is that it took him 3 years to get here. And when people give City Hall a bad rap about how long things take to get here, this sounds like it's a prime example. I don't know what all encompassed the 3 years or what all transpired, and it does sound like it was unique and challenging, but as Steve Knobloch said, we've almost won world wars in that amount of time. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out a sidewalk and do an addition in the back. But anyway, I think maybe staff can look at that on a go-forward basis so that doesn't happen to some other poor applicant. I'm very supportive of the project. I think it's great. I really, really, really do not understand, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding or mishearing or something, but to require an encroachment permit for them to maintain a tree when there's street trees up and down trees in the public right-of-way all over town that people are maintaining, and to make these people pull an encroachment permit to maintain it seems ludicrous to me. The way I read 14C, it talks about improvements requiring an encroachment permit, but I don't see us asking for encroachment permit to have a tree in the parkway all over town. So I certainly understand needing an encroachment permit to do a construction project in the public right-of-way. When they go to build their drive approach in the public right-of-way and cut the curb and gutter, of course they need an encroachment permit. But I don't understand this tree maintenance issue. So I would propose to scratch or reword 14.15C to say either scratch it entirely, preferably, or say future construction improvements in the public right-of-way, requiring encroachment permit. But to say they have to go up and retroactively maintain a tree is crazy to me. I understand that this is a bonsai tree that needs to be, maintained, but they're already doing that. And if they don't do it, then they have to build a sidewalk, which brings me to my second point, which is, in this case, I don't think we should require them to do the sidewalk. I'm in support of the sidewalk waiver, but I'm in more support of not asking a sidewalk at all, given that all up and down the street, there's not other sidewalks. And, I wouldn't be around to collect this bet, but I bet in 100 years, there still won't be continuous sidewalk up and down if it's on a project-by-project basis. So it seems unnecessary to me. So I'm sorry I'm a little bit maybe I'm a foul mood, but I don't think I'm in a foul mood tonight. I'm kind of in a foul mood about what I think is being asked.
Well, I think I'm going to jump in real quick.
This is discussion, this is the time, so if you're good.
I'm good.
Let's have Commissioner Crandall jump in on this.
That is a city policy,
Yes, sir.
and we don't have a whole lot of say we don't make policy.
Correct.
We just,
And
make our
interpret.
judgment on what the policies are.
Yeah.
And that's what engineering wants, and they've reviewed it. I don't know if city attorneys have reviewed it in detail. But I would say that that will be reviewed before any easement or anything's recorded, so I think it's in the right hands.
I think that's fair. Can I ask you now, Christopher, about the condition 4.15, number C, your thoughts, please, given what you've heard?
Yes, so this condition first, it came from Public Works.
Okay.
And so.
They're not here tonight, so you'll have to do your best.
I'm going to do my best, but
Okay.
I think the reason why they wanted to include this is because it does help to go to what most projects involve. Most projects would have a sidewalk. They put the sidewalk in at the time of the project. What's unique about this is they wouldn't be doing that. It could be decades from now. And the idea is there would be things in the public right-of-way that do obstruct someone to walk through that area that's public property. And because they are maintaining items in the public right-of-way, it's worded in such a way, there are no, as far as I know, there's no walls in that area. Right now, there's rocks. The rocks would have to be pushed back. There's a fence that has been removed, but there's different items that will have to be adjusted. We didn't want to have to slow this hearing down to micromanage what should be in this condition. And so it's worded the way it is so that the encroachment permit is for any items that the owner would be keeping in the public right away until the sidewalk is put in. That's the idea behind this part of
I
the
think,
building.
and I can't speak for Commissioner McCann, but my concern in my bringing it up was to not have a hurdle or disincentive for maintenance. If you're telling me this is for a major improvement, a major change, that's the light that this will be looking at. Like you're going to install something new, significant, we're seeking, this condition seeks them to come to the city. That's a little bit different from the maintenance. So which is it? Is it major improvements that'll impact the right-of-way, or is it maintenance?
I think the trees are unique here because even if you maintain it, it's an obstruction in the right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can trim the foliage back and keep them in good condition, but still it's like a pole in the public right-of-way. You can't walk through it. I think that was where they were coming from and.
Because the whole point of the sidewalk waiver was to acknowledge the historical significance of the trees. So obviously, we want them to stay in place, and we want them to be attended to and properly maintained. So whatever obstruction they are providing by virtue of, being there, we're basically, with this waiver, saying, that's okay.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that we're not, again, inadvertently creating some kind of a hurdle that, and I don't think so. I don't think Public Works would want them not to do the maintenance. So without them being here to speak to this directly, I think there's some ambiguity there. I'm just trying to get clarification on whether or not this adds value to protect the right-of-way, or if it just adds confusion to the owner so that they know what they can and cannot do.
My opinion is that, we need to leave both in because A, allows them to go ahead with their project with the existing things that are in the right-of-way, and the city manager is going to waive it,
Okay?
okay? C, protects the city's interest that if they want to do any improvements in the future, in the public right-of-way, or in that easement, they got to come to the city and get.
Right. So you're speaking to the fact that we're not talking about maintenance, we're talking about adding something new.
An improvement.
Right.
Like a
So,
wall.
Commissioner McCann, would you be, if we amended this condition to have wording such as implementing new improvements, such as walls or trees, would that be acceptable to you to clarify this?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
See, I think the maintenance, though, there's general code in the city code that says you got to maintain your property.
yeah, I
So
just.
we don't need any more, that's sort of a given, the
Yeah, yeah.
maintenance.
I just want to make sure that the owners they're clear to do the maintenance without having to get a permit.
I have a concern, I don't want to make it to where we all seem confused. They got to maintain their property in the first place, okay? A and C are there for the city to protect their interest because the city is granting them something exceptional that they wouldn't allow probably anybody else to do because there's historical assets within that public right-of-way. So I think A and C are needed to protect those historical
Yeah, I'm not
assets.
disagreeing with you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Well, I
to
want to just make the
clarify.
argument, I don't think it makes it confusing.
Okay,
They're getting a benefit, and so the city just wants to extract something
Yeah.
to them, and they know fully ahead of time, the trees get to stay there that are significant. But if at any time they want to encroach upon that, or change something, or build something in it, then they need to have an encroachment permit, that
and
the
I'm-
city knows what they're going to do.
thank you.
It's clear to me.
Okay, Christopher, do you feel comfortable with if we had the words implementing new added to the front of this condition? To clarify that that's what we're talking about?
Sure, I'm not Public Works, so I.
Well, you're the
it-
staff
it-
representing
I
the
think-
city tonight, so.
I think it's reasonable
Jonathan, are you
change.
comfortable with
I think
that?
it's reasonable.
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable change in the language, and one of the, maybe context real quick, the city doesn't proactively go out and require encroachment permits for a number of properties that have landscaping. The exception to that would be when there's walls. Sometimes if there's a code case, then we will require that they get an encroachment permit. One of the primary purposes of that is somewhat notification, letting people know that if you're investing money into landscape improvements or a garden wall, there may come a time when
Get down.
either you're required because of a project to tear that out and put a sidewalk in, or if the city does a project, we don't have to ask for your permission. It's somewhat of a notification. These improvements that you've installed are on city property.
Okay,
Can I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion.
yes, I'm open to that. Are we ready for that, everybody? Yeah, please.
Okay. Jenna, do I need to read, can I just say I recommend the recommendation of the staff report, or do I need to read it all out?
You can say the recommendation of the staff report.
Okay,
If
I
you're not making any
move
changes.
the recommendation of the staff report, including the categorical exemption from CEQA, with all the adoptions, with the exception of adding the words implementing new at the beginning of 4.15C.
So, Commissioner McCann, you are moving, excuse me just one second.
Page seven.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're moving. Okay, so you are moving approval of the staff recommendation to determine the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and the commission resolution for both the cultural heritage permit and the architectural permit, as well as recommending city manager approve the sidewalk waiver. That is your motion?
Yes, with the addition of the two words in front of 4.15C.
I will,
Or what?
he-
What are the two added words?
Implementing new.
implementing new in front of condition 4.15C.
So if they do it's just clarifying that if they do new improvements in the public right-of-way, they have to pull an encroachment permit, but they don't have to go and.
For
pull in-
maintenance.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I get a second, just and then we'll discuss it? I will second that for discussion. So let's discuss the motion on the table.
Well, I would be against it because there's already improvements that we're allowing them to leave in that encroachment area. And I think that confuses the issue. An improvement is there's a tree and we're allowing it, which the city sees as a precedent that they don't want other people to say, well, you gave it to them. The city needs to have the assurance that, yes, when the member of the public comes, that tree's staying there. But if that tree ever dies, the sidewalk needs to become there. Right now, that tree is only there because they have an encroachment permit.
No, I don't think that's true.
That's true.
I'm comfortable with the
Yeah.
existing wording, because they're also moving rocks, making room for people to get out of their car. So they are altering what's there. And they should be required to maintain that so people can continue to get out of their car.
Yes.
And that's what this is saying would be done.
But see, even though we have the waiver, the city is
So it's
allowing
not
them to
new.
encroach.
It's-
So let me just give you my read back on all of that. I hear what you guys are saying. My read back is that the reason why the trees are going to be allowed to continue to be there has nothing to do with 4.15. It has to do with the 4.15A, which is the sidewalk waiver. That's what allows the tree to stay. The Commissioner Crandall, your point is they're going to remove the rocks and all of that. That's in condition 4.16. That's what the staff is asking the owner and their representatives to circle back and bring that plan to them for approval. That's 4.16. What 4.15C is getting at is, okay, now that you've got the plan to smooth out that public right-of-way area so cars can park and open their door and not hit the rocks and so forth, and we've got the condition there so that if those trees die, we're going to put the sidewalk in. That's covered. This, to me, is saying, now, with that condition in place, if you are going to do any major work in that right-of-way, we need you to come forward for an encroachment permit, which I think we all agree with. What I think Commissioner McCann and myself are trying to do is simply add a nuance of clarification that if they're coming forward with something new to modify that right-of-way, it has to be something that's an addition, not just doing their maintenance. Just to clarify. It's really for
I don't think it
clarifying.
needs that clarification. This is a standard condition of approval.
Okay.
And that's why it was put in there. I assume it's worded the same for every single project.
Okay.
So we're altering something that's a pretty standard, and that's by Public Works.
You want to speak to this, or?
And I would
And there-
say
there's-
that's their purview.
Okay.
Right. There's two
All right.
sections of the code
I
listed
think
there.
I'll give Commissioner McCann his opportunity to close this loop on this.
Just, as I stated earlier, I haven't seen, there's lots of trees in the public right-of-way that I don't think the city's asking, even if they're doing a project, asking them to pull
I don't think this is all trees. It says private trees, it says garden walls. It's not saying public street trees.
well, but if that's true, then the bonsai trees are public trees, not private trees.
Not necessarily.
Would it be possible to have a private tree in the public right-of-way?
Illegally, yeah.
How would
I
it?
think what-
It would be a privately maintained tree.
Yeah.
I think what's happened here is you're worried about other pieces of property. They haven't done a project yet where this comes up. They're gonna have to probably build a sidewalk and take their trees out. This is a very unique one.
And it might be the
And-
first one.
Well, I'm,
Once we do the waiver, until those trees die, this seems to, I don't see that it makes any difference one way or the other.
I just, do we know if that fence, I'm just curious, which is in front of the neighbor's property, is that in the public right-of-way? Can you tell?
It is, but it's been
Okay. What I heard in the staff report was they had to pull an encroachment permit to maintain the bonsai trees. That's what I heard. That's what seems like overkill to me, and that's what I guess has ruffled my feathers. Additionally, saying, okay, those few little rocks along the curb and gutter, city apparently wants them to relocate them farther back, and yet I don't see that there's a condition specifically about that. And now we're asking them to pull an encroachment permit to move a few rocks by hand. Like, the whole thing just seems overkill, but I will be voting in support of the project, however that goes down.
We have a motion on the floor Do we need to amend the motion, or are we going to be able to move
I
forward?
don't think
Let
makes a
it-
difference one way or the other.
I think you just said let it die, for lack of a second, unless there's
No,
somebody
I've
here that-
seconded it already, so we could discuss it.
Well,
so-
then you're going to make some people vote no against it who don't necessarily want to vote no.
I would like to avoid that.
Yeah.
But then the
So just-
motion wouldn't pass, so then it could be an alternate motion.
I'd like to make an alternate motion that we approve what staff has recommended and not change 4.15C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I'm going to call the roll on this vote, but before I do, I just want to speak in favor of the project, because I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I consider it a good opportunity. This is one of the reasons I like being on design review, is I have the opportunity to sit down with residents and work with them across the table on their dream project and see it come through the process. And this one has been a pleasure to observe. I know that I want to acknowledge your commitment to the city's vision with your property. And every step of the way, whether the city agreed with all of your plans at the beginning or not, you were always wanting to achieve that. And I wanted to just acknowledge that and say that you have made compromises through this process. I've seen you do it, and they were hard. And you gave up some things that you really, really wanted. So that I want to make sure is acknowledged tonight, too. And with that, I want to be in support of the motion. I'm going to call the roll, starting at the end with Commissioner Prescott Loeffler.
So just to clarify,
Yes.
you're voting on
Second.
Commissioner
The substitute-
McLaughlin?
the substitute
Yes.
motion.
Got it.
Okay, the substitute motion is
Yes.
as is.
Yes.
Okay. Since the owner of the property said he was comfortable with it, I will vote yes on that. I think this is a legislative issue that the city council should take up as far as sidewalks and trees. And you look at that entire block, and there are numerous palms and trees in the public right-of-way. And what a burden of expense to make the city come out and put a sidewalk in front of one house and not 5 houses. So it seems like there would be a more appropriate way to address this, but for this particular project to go forward, I'm a yes at this point.
Okay. Commissioner McCann.
No.
Sorry. Chair Pro Tem McCacken.
I,
Commissioner Crandall.
Aye.
And I am a yes as well. The substitute motion passes. Congratulations, Nielsen family. You have your cultural heritage permit and architectural permit. Congratulations. Mr. Luna, thank you so much for all your hard work as well.
Keep those trees alive.
I want to thank my colleagues for a good spirited debate, and thank you, Christopher Wright, for your expert guidance on this project and your great presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes item 8A. We are going to move on with our agenda. And that is item 9, new business. I see none. Item 10 is old business. I don't see any, which brings us to item 11, reports of commissioners and staff. Can I toss it to you, Mr. Lightfoot, to speak to any items from staff on number 11?
Sure, yes, I do have
Then I'll-
just a couple of information updates for the commissioners. The first is on the recruiting side of things. We do have a new senior planner that will be coming in, taking the position that Sarah Toma occupied previously for our senior planner of long-range focus. And the target date for that is October 30th. And then regarding a couple of upcoming meetings, we will be adjourning tonight to a different time than normal for our next meeting. We're going to be starting that next meeting a little bit earlier at 5 p.m. And then there will be a joint study session later than that at 6:30. So we're flipping the normal order there and having the study session later, since it's going to be a joint study session with the council, and we expect a decent amount of public input on that. It's going to be covering processes related to wireless and telecom permitting. And then, just as a forward look, we don't have a second meeting in November. That's the week of Thanksgiving, so that meeting is canceled. And then we'll kick off December with another study session that does talk about the development process. Again, the other study session that council had asked the commission to look into, so somewhat of a connection with the development community on our development review process. So we have time before that one to target more specifics about how that agenda will unfold, but those are the upcoming items in front of you.
Can I ask
Questions?
can I ask a clarification? So on that next meeting, meeting starts at 5?
Correct.
And then study session at 6:30?
Correct.
And is that here or at the community center?
And that is here. And then we will have some food available in between those two for the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
So, Jonathan, you're saying we're going to conduct our regular planning commission meeting at 5, adjourn, then we're going to open a new study session that's a joint commission council meeting on the cell towers.
That's correct.
Okay, which is similar to when we were at the community center and we talked about the senior project. So there'll be a whole bunch of us up here. Okay. Any other questions on that? Any other announcements?
Not this evening, thank you.
Okay, any commissioners have any reports that they want to make or comments? Okay. Then I'm open to a motion to adjourn. Why don't I go ahead and take a stab at it, and we'll have someone second it for me. I will move we adjourn the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission to be held on Wednesday, November the 8th, 2023, at 5 p.m. here at the San Clemente City Hall Council Chambers. Second by Chair Pro Tem McCacken. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.